on the night of our engagement party just because I eagerly drank a few extra celebratory glasses. My fiancée coldly kicked me out of the car while I was completely intoxicated. Pressing through a splitting headache as I trudged back home, I witnessed her passionately embracing and kissing her true, irreplaceable first love. I deeply regret it now. As long as you're willing to come back to me, I'm absolutely prepared to call off the engagement for you. Witnessing the gentle, endlessly patient affection she displayed toward that man, I suddenly felt a profound sense of regret myself, so she wouldn't have to face the awkwardness of calling things off. On the actual day of the wedding, I will be the one to walk away. The silhouette cast against the window revealed two instantly recognizable figures. It was painfully obvious that at this exact moment, they were holding each other incredibly tight. I aggressively kicked off the shoes on my feet. These shoes were an engagement gift from Ruyan, and I cherished them deeply. Unfortunately, they were a size too small, and walking that entire distance left my feet completely raw and bleeding. Because of that, right? Now, I would rather walk barefoot than ever force myself to wear them again. I dialed that familiar, long-lost overseas phone number. I'm not getting married anymore. I want to come live with you, Dad. He remained silent for a brief moment before replying, all right, I'm getting older, and this family empire will eventually be handed over to you anyway. Come over here as soon as possible, so you could get a head start on adapting to everything. I gave a soft murmur of agreement, only to hear a heavy, sorrowful sigh echo from the other end of the line. I honestly thought that girl would be different. I never expected her to repeat the exact same tragic mistakes as your mother and I. Shaolin, don't waste your tears. You are still young, and a man's entire universe isn't strictly limited to marriage and raising children. You can build your own magnificent legacy. Take some time to really think it over. I'll be waiting for you tonight. I too honestly believed Ruyan was completely different. She was a fiercely independent alpha female, yet she always carried herself with immaculate virtue, composed, gentle, and profoundly polite toward everyone. With every single man except for me, she maintained a perfectly professional distance. Even when her career skyrocketed to absolute peaks, she never once had a single romantic scandal linked to her name. Until our engagement party tonight, when she caught sight of an uninvited guest, Chu Jingshin. For the very first time, she completely lost her composure, shattering her wine glass in shock. For the first time ever, she flew into a raging fury over a completely trivial matter with me, abandoning me entirely by the side of the dark road. If the person Ruyan ran into had been anyone else, I would have desperately rationalized that everything was just a tragic misunderstanding. I would have been more than willing to grant Ruyan another chance, readily wasting a decade, or even 20 unrequited years just to remain by her side. But the man lounging inside that room right now is Su Xingchen. It's the very same Su Xingchen who brutally tormented me for over 2 agonizing decades. It's the same Su Xing who systematically robbed me of absolutely everything. It's the same Su Xing whom I can absolutely never, ever forgive. The exact split second I witnessed Ruyan take the initiative to bring Su Xing back to our home, my heart completely and permanently severed all ties with this woman. Yet for some inexplicable reason, my hands betrayed my mind, completely ignoring my own rational control to open the home security. Surveillance up. On the camera feed, Su Xing Chun was comfortably lounging in my personal pajamas, sprawled out, right in the middle of our brand new bridal bedroom. A woman who had never once touched a single chore in her life, who utterly despised my drinking and branded me as someone lacking basic self-respect. This very same Ruyan was actually stepping into the kitchen to prepare a hangover soup entirely for him. Su Xingchen casually tilted his head upwards and smugly interrogated her. Are you honestly planning to marry that pathetic little placeholder substitute of yours? Cease. Ruyan offered no verbal reply, merely leaning down to gently massage the legs of Su Xing Chun. Even if you stay silent, I already know everything. You've orchestrated every single bit of this drama, purely to provoke me. This entire ridiculous engagement fiasco was nothing more than a desperate trap to force me to finally show up. Deep down, you can't possibly forget. About me. Look around. This entire house was meticulously styled, according to the exact aesthetic that I love. The wedding rings you chose happen to be the exact design I fancy. Even the initials customized on the cake belong to the two of us. Hell, even these shoes on my feet right now are just leftovers that I discarded. As these venomous words spilled from his lips, Su Xingqian casually rested his feet against Lu Ruyan's chest. The person you truly love, in reality, has always been me. Lu Ruyan maintained her heavy silence. But after a brief, tense pause, she suddenly threw herself desperately into Su Xingqian's arms, locking him in a fierce, passionate kiss, to unleash the overwhelming, suffocating torrent of affection she had bottled up inside. Witnessing this devastating spectacle, my vision completely blurred with scalding tears. I vividly recalled our 10 long years together. Every single time, I felt an overwhelming wave of emotion and tried to initiate a kiss, she would coldly turn her face away without a second thought. I had foolishly assumed she was simply conservative or deeply introverted. I never could have guessed that her fiery passion was strictly reserved, was so easily flustered, never expecting her devotion to be entirely reserved. For her absolute ultimate, most passionate love, Su Xingqian, for 10 agonizing years, her physical self, shared a blanket and an intimate bed with me, acting out the role of a loving, devoted partner. Yet in her hidden soul, she was meticulously saving her purest devotion, solely for that sacred first love. I inhaled a ragged breath, preparing to hail a ride and vanish from this place. But out of nowhere, Lu Ruyan rushed down the stairs, having tracked me down without me even realizing it. She sharply barked out my name, and the very instant she saw me pivot around, she instinctively let go of Su Xingqian's hand. Xingqian drank way too much tonight, Lin. He's practically your own younger brother, and I was genuinely terrified that letting him wander the streets alone in that state would be dangerously unsafe, which is exactly why I brought him back here. He is a truly decent, respectable man who thoroughly knows his boundaries. He was actually deathly afraid you'd misinterpret this, so he fiercely insisted on leaving. Immediately, Lu Ruyan, who was habitually a woman of incredibly few words, suddenly transformed the moment Su Xingqian was brought up, rambling on and on as if she had an endless torrent of things to say. Furthermore, every single syllable escaping her lips was a desperate attempt to shield and defend him. I stared at the woman standing directly before me, suddenly overwhelmed by a profound wave of icy estrangement. I was undeniably the one who had grown up right alongside her since early childhood, her literal lifelong childhood sweetheart. I was undeniably her official fiancé, who had bled and sweat alongside her to build her massive corporate empire over the last 10 grueling years. So tell me, why on earth did I end up being cast aside as nothing more than a pathetic, temporary substitute? Swallowing the excruciating agony in my chest, I took a heavy breath. He is absolutely not my brother. He is nothing but the bastard son of a vile, home-wrecking mistress. The absolute moment those words left my mouth, Lu Ruyan instantly flew into a violent rage. Su Xiaoling, how can you possibly spit such utterly venomous, malicious garbage at Xingqian? Apologize to him this instant. No wonder your own biological parents threw you away like trash when you were a child. No wonder absolutely everyone in your life utterly despises you. This pathetic, bitter, and fiercely resentful attitude of yours makes me completely sick to my stomach. You thoroughly deserve to be completely unloved by the world. As if gripped by a sudden panic that I might violently lash out at Su Xingqian, Lu Ruyan aggressively shoved me backward, sending me crashing onto the hard pavement, while she frantically threw her own body in front of him, like a human shield. The soft, elegant moonlight gently illuminated the sharp contours of Lu Ruyan's face, and that look of desperate, raw panic mirrored a tiny, fragile silhouette buried deep within my memories from many, many years ago. Back when we were just innocent children, Lu. Back when we were just carefree, innocent children, Lu Ruyan used to fearlessly shield me from the world in that exact same stance. Back then, my mother was having a scandalous affair getting pregnant with another man's child, and ruthlessly forcing my father into a divorce, just to be with her secret lover. After my father fled overseas, I became nothing but an unwanted piece of garbage inside that godforsaken house. Every single time Ruyan heard our thunderous, violent arguments from her house next door, she would immediately sprint over and recklessly throw her body in front of mine. She used to tell me, "Xiaolin, you are genuinely the absolute best, most wonderful person in this entire world, even if the rest of the universe entirely discards and abandons you. I will personally love and protect you for the rest of eternity." As I grew up, I carried those beautiful words from Ruyan deep within my soul. I relentlessly slaved away to make money, desperately craving to permanently escape that toxic family hellhole and construct a warm, blissful home. With her, the perfect sanctuary I had always dreamed of. Yet whenever I brought up those childhood promises, she would simply knit her brows in deep annoyance and dismissively mutter that it was just childish, meaningless nonsense. But now that Su Xingqian has forcefully burst into our lives, she won't even bother utilizing those sugar-coated, gentle dismissals with me anymore. Instead, she weaponized a devastating, toxic phrase. "You thoroughly deserve to be completely unloved," ruthlessly stabbing it right into the most agonized, bleeding scar inside my heart. I abruptly turned my head away, refusing to look at her for another single second, though my eyes involuntarily welled up with scalding tears and burned a furious red. Ruyan's gaze wavered slightly for a brief moment. I couldn't tell if she had finally realized how sickeningly cruel her words were, or if she had just noticed my bare mangled feet dripping with fresh blood onto the cold pavement. She let out a heavy, exhausted sigh. "Tonight, I'll just pretend you're completely wasted and spitting utter nonsense, Lin. But cross my path like this again, and there absolutely won't be a next time." I let out a hollow, completely indifferent chuckle. "Whatever." Ruyan froze, utterly baffled by my reaction, and was about to aggressively press for answers, when Su Xingqian suddenly burst into dramatic tears and sprinted away into the night. Instantly forgetting every single lingering question in her mind, she frantically dashed after him without a backward glance. In her desperate, manic rush, a star-shaped silver necklace slipped completely unnoticed from her pocket and clattered against the ground. I slowly bent down to retrieve the discarded necklace from the dirt, vividly remembering that Ruyan possessed a matching, delicate little star tattoo right above her breast. Every single damning detail I had blindly ignored over the years suddenly aligned, weaving together into a sickening reality. At this precise moment, I realized a lifelong childhood sweetheart could never hold a candle to a fated lover who drops from the heavens. This pathetic, grand illusion of a 10-year romance was nothing more than a delusional, one-sided obsession of mine. Since the truth is finally laid bare, there is absolutely no reason for me to stay and play the fool anymore. 10 whole years of my life were nothing but a completely one-sided, voluntary delusion. Since that is the brutal reality, there is absolutely no reason for me to turn back or even torment myself and drag things out for a woman who doesn't deserve it. The moment I stepped back inside, I received a fresh notification text from my father. He had already booked me a one-way flight overseas, and the departure date lined up perfectly with exactly half a month from now. The massive wedding countdown, board hanging prominently in our living room, has now officially flipped into a grim countdown, ticking away the days until my permanent departure. I let out a hollow, bitter laugh, systematically tearing down and throwing away every single wedding decoration and matching couples item. If this is the hand that fate has dealt me, then I will utilize these final 2 weeks to conduct a proper, absolute farewell to every single piece of my past. Once dawn broke over the horizon, the sudden blaring ringtone of Ruyan's phone call abruptly shattered my sleep. "Xiaolin, are you awake yet? I went ahead and ordered those Xylong Bao steamed buns you absolutely adore. But listen, I won't be able to make it back today. An absolute crisis just blew up at the office. Let's reschedule our wedding photo shoot for another day, all right? Also, don't let the drama from last night get to you. I am officially apologizing to you on Xingqian's behalf." Sure, Ruyan clearly never anticipated that I would agree so effortlessly and flawlessly. She sounded slightly flustered, momentarily lost. For words before stammering, the whole wedding ceremony is honestly just a hollow formality. For show anyway. The bond and love we share is already so profoundly deep, we don't need arbitrary spectacles to prove anything. Keeping everything completely simple is for the best. Sure, let's keep absolutely everything simple. This entire wedding will have no marriage certificate, no professional bridal portraits, no ceremonial host, and ultimately, it won't even have a groom. The second I hung up the phone, I grabbed a heavy black marker and aggressively crossed out the scheduled wedding photo shoot from our master calendar. Ruyan's professional schedule was always notoriously packed, and under normal circumstances, she virtually never had a spare second to spend with me. Because of that, I had painstakingly written down a detailed bucket list of things I desired to experience most on this calendar, hoping to utilize this grand wedding milestone to finally fulfill every single one of my lifelong dreams. Tragically, each and every dream was now being aggressively buried beneath a thick, dark layer of permanent marker ink, transforming into a collection of unspoken, agonizing regrets. I completely ceased investing any of my thoughts or emotional energy into Ruyan. After officially submitting my resignation letter to my corporate firm, I scheduled a casual dinner with a few close colleagues to host a quiet farewell gathering. Over the next several days, I systematically reached out to every single friend on my side, explicitly delivering the news that the wedding was officially called off. In reality, practically all of them had already deduced the truth. One of my friends pulled up Ruyan's private social media feed to show me. Throughout this entire time, Ruyan had been constantly to break the shocking news of a canceled wedding. Truth be told, they had already completely figured it out themselves. A close friend immediately pulled up Ruyan's public social media profile to show me. Throughout this entire timeline, Ruyan had constantly hanging out with Su Xingchen. Strangers who didn't know any better honestly assumed that the man featured all over her private social media feed was you. But for us, it took only a single glance to spot the truth immediately. Ruyan, a woman who had never once posted a single solitary photograph of you, now has a feed completely flooded with candid back profile shots of Su Xingchen. They've been spotted together, frequenting amusement parks to clear his mind, strolling into high-end bridal boutiques to try on wedding attire, and lounging by the seashore, sipping wine while watching the majestic sunrise. The overwhelming affection she harbors for Su Xingchen is loud, proud, and completely out in the open, leaving you as the only one left totally in the dark. My friend shot me a deeply concerned, anxious look. Xiaolin, buddy, please don't let this tear your heart apart. That pathetic Su Xingchen doesn't even possess a fraction of the worth compared to you. If Ruyan ever uncovers the sickening truth about Su Xingchen's real face, her entire world will completely shatter, and she'll be drowning in absolute, bitter regret. It's honestly fine. Yvette completely ceased caring about any of this a long time ago. I shifted my gaze toward the chaotic, bustling city streets. In just a mere matter of days, I will permanently vanish from this place forever. I simply don't possess a single spare ounce of time or emotional energy to waste on being heartbroken over Ruyan. Because of that, even when Ruyan finally materialized at home after disappearing for days on end, I still didn't show even a flicker of a reaction. The absolute moment she stepped through the door, her hands were still frantically typing out text responses. She casually glanced around the room, completely oblivious. Wait, why does the house look so empty and barren? Did you seriously not put up any wedding decorations? Didn't you explicitly state that we should keep absolutely everything simple? Upon hearing that, Ruyan's eyes drifted over and landed squarely on the countdown board. Wow, time is seriously flying by. There's only one single week left until our big wedding day. I secretly tore away 2 more pages from the countdown. Our actual wedding was precisely 5 days away. Those 2 discarded pages contained my heartfelt wishes to ride a Ferris wheel together and to watch the sun rise and set side by side. But of course, Ruyan would naturally remain eternally blind to absolutely anything that was genuinely important to me. Right at that moment, my father's ringtone echoed through the room. I stepped out onto the balcony to answer the call, exchanging a few quick, straightforward words. The instant I stepped back, inside, Ruyan was still completely glued to her phone screen. What was that all about? I swear, I overheard you mentioning something about leaving or not having something. It's nothing at all, just a minor work-related issue. Oh, well, that reminds me. As if she was actively listening to something completely hidden. Oh, it's absolutely nothing, just generic corporate business matters. Right, of course. You absolutely must not plan any sort of honeymoon getaway, okay? My schedule is completely swamped, and I literally don't have a single spare second to go anywhere. I already knew the truth. Ever since Su Xingqian returned, she couldn't bear to detach herself from his side for even a fraction of a second. Sensing the incredibly awkward, heavy tension hanging in the air, I quietly handed the star-shaped silver necklace over to Ruyan. Her usually cold, expressionless eyes instantly ignited with absolute brilliance. So it was with you all along. I've been desperately searching everywhere for this. Yeah, I know. I saw your viral online post offering an astronomical reward for its safe return, a staggering 1 million yuan bounty just to recover a battered, cheap little star necklace. Meanwhile, the absolute grand total budget set aside for our entire wedding ceremony was a mere 200,000 yuan. I stared directly at Ruyan, a sudden question slipping from my lips. Where exactly is your wedding ring? She froze entirely in place for a brief, stunned moment, before belatedly shifting her gaze down toward her own hand. Her finger was completely bare, the ring having slipped off and vanished. At some completely unknown point in time, Ruyan desperately scrambled to fabricate an explanation. But her phone suddenly chimed with an incoming text. It was the exclusive, highly specific ringtone reserved entirely for Su Xingqian. She aggressively glanced at the screen, abruptly stood up, and hastily planted a cold kiss upon my forehead. I am incredibly sorry, hubby. Lately, things have been completely chaotic at work, so I'm afraid the rest of the wedding preparations will have to be managed entirely by you. Once I successfully push through this insanely busy phase, I solemnly promise to make you the single happiest, most envied man on this planet. The habitually silent, icy Ruyan was suddenly spouting these incredibly sweet, rehearsed romantic promises. If this had been the past, I, without a doubt, would have been profoundly moved and ecstatic, firmly believing I had finally melted her frozen exterior. But now, it only triggered a wave of pure disgust. I quietly walked away to wash my face, remaining thoroughly occupied with finalizing my own secret arrangements. Time relentlessly marched forward, second by second, flashing past in the blink of an eye, until it was officially the final eve before the wedding. The corresponding wish listed on the calendar for today was to share a joyful reunion dinner. This had been the absolute ultimate dream burning within my soul for over 20 long, painful years. Yet deep down I thoroughly understood that this specific wish would eternally remain an absolute impossibility. My father will never, ever forgive my mother, and I will absolutely never forgive Ruyan. I ultimately chose to go ride the massive Ferris wheel completely alone. Perched high in the sky, I silently watched the crimson sunset and the massive evening tides slowly engulf the sprawling city, the very place where I had grown up from a helpless child to an adult. Every single lingering memory seemed to dissolve completely into the chilly evening breeze. Meanwhile, Su Xingqian had just blasted out a brand new social media update. And right on cue, Su Xingqian had just posted a brand new update, a single picture of a grand family gathering, sharing a meal. My biological mother, her face completely radiating joy, was watching Ruyan eagerly serve gourmet food on her plate. The attached caption read, "Both families meeting up to finalize the absolute last minute detail for the upcoming wedding." I didn't even feel a spark of rage, just an overwhelming sense of dark amusement. A wedding ceremony. For whom exactly? Was it supposed to be mine, or was it tailored entirely for Su Xingqian? Sweetly selected Su Xingqian's profile, slapped him into my blocked list, and permanently deleted him. I desperately wanted to type out a scathing message to Ruyan, but after drafting and erasing it For ages, I ultimately couldn't bring myself to send it. Just as I was preparing to head back, Ruyan's call abruptly blared through my phone. Where on earth are you right now? Why aren't you back at the house? Send me your current location immediately. I miss you so much. True to her word, Ruyan materialized within minutes. The instant I stepped into the car, I immediately noticed a straight basketball occupying the passenger seat. Moving the throw pillow aside, my eyes locked right onto an already opened, half-empty box of condoms. Hesitating for a split second, I deliberately chose to slide into the back seat instead. Ruyan's eyes, however, remained thoroughly glued to her phone screen, entirely oblivious to my strange, chilly behavior. She casually muttered, "What suddenly possessed you to wander off? To an amusement park, anyway? Is everything for the wedding fully taken care of? It's almost wrapped up. You know, I distinctly remember you've always desperately wanted to ride that Ferris wheel. The absolute second I get a breather, I promise I'll take you and we'll ride it until you've had your fill. Honestly, I had zero intentions of bothering you today, but my mother insisted on seeing you." In Ruyan's warped reality, this entire wedding was solely my independent responsibility. She would only ever summon me into her mind when she specifically had a direct use for me. I offered no response, my eyes stinging fiercely, as a harsh gust of wind whipped against my face, leaving me profoundly uncomfortable. By the time we pulled up to the old family estate, nothing remained but a table of cold, picked-over leftovers. My mother was thoroughly engrossed in a warm conversation with Uncle Lou. Aunt Lou immediately burst forward with overwhelming enthusiasm, tightly grabbing my hands. "Xiaolan, sweetheart, Auntie is genuinely so incredibly fond of you. Sure, you might not pull in a massive fortune, but you are so pure-hearted and thoroughly know how to manage a household. Unlike those ruthlessly scheming, opportunistic men out there." As those words left her mouth, her gaze sharply darted over to shoot a venomous glare at Su Xingchen. Even though someone with Ruyan's elite status could easily secure a partner who is vastly superior on paper, I keep hammering it into her head that she must cherish you. After all, not every single man out there is willing to marry into the bride's family as a matrilocal husband. That being said, you are getting up there in age. Once the wedding is finalized, you should absolutely quit your little job. Hurry up and give her a healthy baby, and from that point forward, just focus your entire existence on staying home and catering to Ruyan's every need. I offered a few hollow, half-hearted murmurs of agreement. Tilting my head up, I caught Ruyan. "Just stay at home and dedicate all your energy to pampering Ruyan." I dismissively muttered a few generic responses, but the exact second I lifted my gaze, Ruyan had already glided over to Su Xingchen's side. She held up the meticulously picked wedding attire for both the groom and the best man, ordering us to try them on. Knowing how swamped with work you always are, I had Xingchen scout and select the outfits instead. His fashion sense has always been infinitely superior to yours. Yet, my groom's suit was shockingly stained with yellow grime and featured a massive, gaping tear right down the seam. In stark contrast, Su Xingchen was outfitted in an ultra-premium, immaculate white tuxedo, making him look vastly more like the actual groom. Ruyan flashed a sudden hint of panic, frantically stammering, This must be a ridiculous blunder by the boutique staff. This has absolutely nothing to do with Xingchen. It's just that it's way too late into the night, and rushing out to exchange it right now is practically impossible. Don't worry, I'll figure out a solution first thing tomorrow morning. It's fine, I replied with absolute indifference, calmly reaching up to shed the ruined jacket. Su Xingchen, however, forcefully suggested that we capture a group photograph to mark the occasion. Shuffling around and deliberately jostling, he aggressively shoved me out to the absolute periphery of the frame while he smoothly anchored himself right beside Ruyan. The exact millisecond the shutter snapped, he slyly tripped me. Consequently, the final captured image rendered me as nothing but a heavily blurred, unrecognizable shadow whose face was completely obscured. Ruyan immediately insisted on taking a retake, but I merely cracked a hollow smile. We can always do it later when an opportunity arises. In reality, time was rapidly running out, and that deep-rooted dream of us taking a proper couple's photo had long since been aggressively crossed off my bucket list. Su Xingqian squeezed out a few crocodile tears, whimpering, "I'm so incredibly sorry, big brother. Please don't be mad at me, and definitely don't make things difficult for Sister Ruyan tonight. Even if I have to sprint across every single corner of this entire city before dawn, I swear I will unearth the absolute perfect wedding suit for you." Having dropped that dramatic performance, he burst into hysterical tears and fled into the night. Lu Ruyan shot me a vicious, blaming glare before instantly dashing out to chase. After him, I was left feeling nothing but absolute numbness. Clutching the shredded tuxedo, I walked out and departed, completely alone. After all, come tomorrow morning, this entire farce would finally reach its ultimate expiration. The second I arrived, back at the house, I performed one final meticulous check on my packed luggage. As I kept myself busy until the early hours of the morning, I unexpectedly stumbled upon Lu Ruyan's personal diary. Flipping through the pages, I discovered it chronicled the exact dark era from a few years ago, the absolute lowest point of Lu Ruyan's life, and detailed the exact timeline of how she met Su Xing, of her devastating downfall, and the entire timeline of how she met Su Xing. Shoved into my side, she casually held up a groom's tuxedo and a groomsman's suit, telling us to go ahead and try them on. I knew you were incredibly swamped, so I had Xingqian handle the shopping for me. Honestly, his fashion taste has always been leagues ahead of yours. The cheap suit meant for me was horribly yellowed, stained, and prominently torn wide open along a massive seam. In brutal, glaring contrast, Su Xingqian was flawlessly draped in a luxurious, high-end, pristine white tuxedo, making him look infinitely more like the actual groom. Lu Ruyan panicked slightly, desperately stammering. The boutique owner must have completely botched the order. This has absolutely nothing to do with Xingqian. It's just that it's way too late right now, and there's no time to go back and get it replaced. Just leave it to me. I'll figure out a solution first thing tomorrow. Don't sweat it. I responded with absolute indifference, calmly reaching up to unbutton the ruined jacket. But Su Xingqian suddenly chimed in, aggressively insisting that we all snap a group photo together, shuffling and shifting around. He aggressively forced me all the way to the absolute outer edge of the frame, positioning himself snugly right beside Lu Ruyan. The exact split second the camera shutter clicked, he intentionally tripped me. Consequently, the final captured image left me as nothing but a heavily blurred, ghostly silhouette whose facial features were entirely unrecognizable. Lu Ruyan frowned, stating she wanted to redo the picture, but I merely let out a faint smirk. We can always do it later if there's an opportunity. It was already getting late anyway. The heartfelt wish to take a perfect group photo together had been aggressively struck from my calendar long ago. Su Xingqian's eyes instantly welled with crocodile tears as he whimpered, "I am so incredibly sorry, big brother. Please don't be furious with me and make things difficult for Ruyan. Even if I have to spend the entire night racing across every single corner of this city, I swear I will hunt down an absolutely flawless tuxedo for you." Spitting out his dramatic performance, he burst into tears and bolted out into the dark. Lu Ruyan shot me a fiercely venomous glare before instantly racing. After him, I was left feeling nothing but absolute, mind-numbing emptiness. Clutching the shredded tuxedo, I quietly exited the house entirely alone and walked away. After all, by tomorrow morning, absolutely everything will finally come to a permanent end. The moment I arrived back at my place, I conducted one final meticulous check of my luggage. Deep into the quiet hours of the night, I unexpectedly stumbled upon Lu Ruyan's old private diary. The handwritten entries vividly detailed the exact timeline from years ago, back when her life had hit rock bottom, and she first crossed paths with Su Xingqian at a local lovers' cafe. Shockingly, the most critical, pivotal pages have been violently ripped out, leaving behind only a single, haunting sentence. That was undeniably the single most blissful, magnificent chapter of my entire existence. Every subsequent page that followed was nothing but an endless, agonizing lamentation detailing her suffocating, desperate yearning for Su Xingqian. On the exact day she finally accepted my marriage proposal, she penned these brutal words into her diary: "And marry the person I loved more than life itself, Lu Ruyan." But now, that dream wedding has been completely and utterly ruined, and the person I once cherished above all else has transformed into a total, unrecognizable monster. I savagely crumpled the paper into a tight ball and threw it into the trash. Leaving absolutely everything behind, I stepped out completely alone and caught a ride straight to the airport terminal at precisely 12 o'clock noon. Today, the exact millisecond I buckled into my cabin seat, Ruyan's name suddenly flashed across my screen. Shockingly, her voice was completely choked with desperate, frantic sobs. "Xiaoling, where on earth are you?" The intercom sharply announced that the aircraft was preparing for immediate takeoff. I didn't utter a single syllable, calmly powering down the device, before leaning heavily back into the leather seat and slipping into a deep, heavy sleep. Perhaps everything that had violently transpired over these last few days was just too overwhelming, completely draining me of every ounce of my strength. Out that, during this specific block of time, things had been far too chaotic, far too exhausting. My chronic, exhausting insomnia suddenly vanished, allowing me to sleep like a baby high up in the clouds. Tragically, even within the confines of my dreams, I couldn't escape the haunting visage of a 7-year-old Ruyan. Back when we used to play house, she would passionately declare herself my bride and brand me the most handsome groom in the universe. By the time we turned 18 and officially unlocked our romantic relationship, she swore she would amass an absolute fortune just to gift me the most spectacular, breathtaking wedding ceremony and construct the most blissful sanctuary together. Where exactly did our pure bond begin to rot and warp, I wonder? Was it the precise moment Su Xingchen barged into our lives? Or had the cracks begun forming long before? That, try as I might, I can't seem to remember. Ruyan essentially consumed the absolute entirety of the first half of my existence, no matter how meticulously I force myself to project an aura of total indifference. Permanently cutting her out of my soul still inflicts a devastating, excruciating agony that feels like my very bones are being violently shattered. The moment the aircraft touched down, I realized I didn't even possess the raw courage to power on my phone. "Xiaolan," my father's voice cut through a massive crowd of blonde, blue-eyed foreigners as he frantically waved his arm at me. After decades of zero contact, he had completely transformed from the shattered, pathetic man etched into my childhood memories, the one who used to lounge helplessly on the sofa, drowning in tears while waiting for my mother to return. He had visibly aged, yet he radiated an incredibly powerful, brilliant aura that far surpassed his youth. "Look at how much you've grown," my father relentlessly cupped my face, his voice cracking as he repeated a cascade of desperate apologies. Without a word, I collapsed into his warm, firm embrace. "Dad, I'm genuinely fine. You were the one who always hammered it into my head that a man must guard his absolute dignity at all costs. Instead of reducing yourself to a beggar waiting for affection, you must learn to aggressively prioritize and love yourself first." My father from 20 years ago and myself standing here, 20 years later, had ultimately arrived at the exact same crossroads. "Xiaolan, Ruyan has been frantically dialing my personal line, trying to track you down." Dad gently wiped the remaining tears from my face, even as his own fresh tears began spilling over. Looking directly into my eyes, he repeated his timeless promise. "No matter what path you choose to carve out, your old man will always have your back." Turning my attention to my screen, line after line of endless notifications revealed a staggering wall of missed calls from Ruyan. The sheer volume of unread text she had fired off was overwhelming, and before I could even skim through them, another incoming call violently flashed across the display. "Xiaolan." Ruyan's voice trembled violently, sounding as though an immense, suffocating weight had just been lifted from her chest. Never in my entire life had I witnessed her project such a raw, unhinged state of panic. I found myself entirely bewildered. Susin. Chen was already back by her side, so why on earth was she still desperately suffocating me with her concern? Her. I felt a profound wave of confusion. Su Xing. Chen had already returned to her side, so why on earth was she still so obsessively hyper-focused on me? A mere substitute. Like me. "Xiaolan, you've completely read through my personal diary, haven't you?" "Please, that's absolutely not the truth." There is completely nothing scandalous between me and Su Xingchen. I have always strictly viewed him as a younger brother. I know for a fact that you are devastated. I literally saw the tear stains you left behind on the pages. I'll readily admit that during this recent period, I have been incredibly negligent toward you, but I swear I never once intended to inflict any pain upon you. I felt a sudden wave of sheer bewilderment. Lu Ruyan, I'm fully aware that you only agreed to marry me due to immense pressure from the elders. Because of that, I chose to permanently walk away, to gracefully fulfill your desires with Su Xing. Chun, what on earth do you have to be so upset about? Why are you shedding these pathetic tears? In Liu Ruyan's personal diary, Susin, Chun was painted as a solitary ray of brilliant light during her darkest, most depressed years, the most profound, indelible stroke in the entire canvas of her existence. She had completely and utterly erased the reality of that timeline, the absolute agony and relentless sacrifice I endured to aggressively resurrect her failing career, while she and Su Xing Chun were comfortably basking in the self-proclaimed most magnificent, beautiful chapter of their lives. I was actively draining every single cent of my hard-earned savings, just to desperately patch up her massive financial deficits. I was the one tracking down corporate clients door to door, literally dropping to my knees and begging them for a chance, violently slamming my head against the floor. In humiliation, I was the one drinking myself into oblivion day and night to secure business deals, eventually triggering severe, life-threatening stomach bleeding. Absolutely none of those brutal sacrifices remained in her memory. She chose to only remember the exhilarating romance of love at first sight that Su Xing Chun had effortlessly handed her, that soul-shattering, intoxicating thrill. She literally got a permanent tattoo dedicated to Su Xingchen right above her breast, maliciously lying directly to my face, claiming it was a symbol to commemorate her days of immense struggle and to constantly motivate herself. In reality, the only thing she desperately craved to engrave into her flesh was Su Xing Chun and his blazing, fiery passion. Now, she has finally gotten exactly what she wished for, reclaiming the one and only true love of her entire existence. So why on earth is she suddenly weeping and longing for me? Xiaolin, you called off the wedding entirely to seek revenge against me, didn't you? Deep down in your soul, you are still utterly obsessed with me. You love me far too much, and you are fiercely resentful that I've been so incredibly distant lately, which is exactly why you engineered this entire dramatic stunt. But it's honestly fine. I will completely forgive you, Xiaolin. No matter what toxic games you choose to play, I will always, without fail, forgive you. I was left entirely speechless, momentarily paralyzed by a wave of pure absurdity, unable to even find the words to argue back. Back during my naive youth when I didn't know any better, I admittedly used to throw furious tantrums, weeping, throwing massive scenes, and even staging dramatic runaways from home. Yet, no matter how hard I try to make a statement, whatever I do, just let me do it. Lu Ruyan would merely stand there, watching me with an icy, detached glare. She would never offer a word of comfort, nor would she ever actively scold me. Instead, she chose to spectate like an absolute stranger as I, drowned in agonizing sorrow, waiting patiently for me to inevitably bow my head and beg for forgiveness. I had foolishly assumed that this was simply her natural personality. Little did I know, she understood exactly what she was doing all along. Having grown up right beside me since childhood, she held my entire psyche, perfectly mapped out in the palm of her hand, completely certain that my love for her was an unbreakable addiction. She ruthlessly weaponized my own affection against me, basking in absolute, fearless confidence, because she knew I would never stray. She never, in her wildest nightmares, anticipated that I would suddenly vanish, permanently severing ties without a single backward glance. This sudden development was completely outside the realm of her pristine, calculated control. She was genuinely terrified now, scared out of her mind that she had permanently lost me. The moment I finally saw through her entire toxic game, the absolute last shred of lingering attachment I held for Lu Ruyan instantaneously dissolved into thin air, evaporating completely. Ruyan, I will always be genuinely grateful for the brief warmth you granted me when my world was at its absolute darkest. Because of that, I am fully willing to pardon every single ounce of trauma and pain you have inflicted upon my life. Calling off this wedding wasn't some petty plot for revenge. It was an independent choice to reclaim my own destiny. From this precise moment forward, there is zero love left between us and zero hatred. I genuinely hope we can each walk our separate paths and never, under any circumstances, cross paths again. The instant the final word left my lips, I permanently slapped Ruyan's contact into my block list. I turned to give my dad a reassuring smile. Yet for some bizarre, inexplicable reason, hot tears continued to stream down my face endlessly. I couldn't even tell if they were born from immense joy or profound sorrow. My father gently patted my shoulder, whispering, "It's finally all over, son. Your old man is throwing a massive welcome home party. Just for you. Let's step forward and embrace a completely fresh chapter of life." My father's version of a welcome home celebration turned out to be incredibly unconventional. He had spent the last few days flawlessly handling all my paperwork and logistics. And the moment everything was officially finalized, he dragged me straight to the most high-end, chaotic nightclub in the city. The deafening, pulse-pounding music blared through the room as premium, high-proof alcohol coursed through my veins. Under that intense, euphoric stimulation, every single ounce of suffocating baggage, depression, and agony buried deep within my chest seemed to be instantly launched straight into the stratosphere. At the exact midway point of the wild night, my dad's energy completely fizzled out. He meticulously assigned a squad of elite bodyguards to watch over me in the venue before heading back to the hotel to catch some rest. I actively partied until the first rays of dawn finally broke, eventually leaning heavily against the firm support of my security detail as I stumbled out the exit. Through my heavily blurred, intoxicated vision, I caught sight of a strikingly familiar silhouette. She was slowly taking deliberate steps directly toward me, her image fracturing and overlapping wildly before my eyes. I blinked hard, staring. Belonging to her, she slowly paced straight toward me, the shifting memories overlapping in my mind as I stared intently as the hazy features resolved into the face of Ruyan. She pleaded, "Xiaolin, please just come back home with me. I'll personally handle my parents, and I'll talk to our relatives. As for our mutual friends, I will completely explain everything to them so that absolutely no one point a finger at you. As long as you are willing to return to my side, I will completely forgive you for running away from the wedding and for your blatant infidelity. I'll step up and get everything completely sorted out for us so we can have a fresh start. I solemnly swear I will treat you right from now on, and I will never, under any circumstances, allow you to feel this disappointed and heartbroken ever again." The ground right where she stood was heavily littered with crushed cigarette butts. I had absolutely no clue how she managed to track me down, let alone how many grueling hours she had been standing out here, waiting. The only emotion churning inside me was pure, unadulterated shock at the absolute, mind-boggling audacity she possessed. Ruyan, what on earth makes you think I care about securing your pathetic forgiveness? Ruyan aggressively took another deep drag from her cigarette, the corners of her eyes reddening with each passing second. "I literally just saw you grinding and partying with a blonde girl who was dressed in a tiny bikini. If that isn't a textbook definition of cheating, then what the hell is, Su Xiaolin? I genuinely love you, and that is the sole reason I am completely willing to look past this betrayal. If you walk away from me, you'll never find another woman who is even half as magnificent as I am." I couldn't even restrain myself from bursting into a dark laugh. "Have you completely lost your mind? Did you conveniently forget that we are already completely broken up?" In Ruyan's twisted reality, the fact that she was actively locking lips with Su Xing Chen right after our engagement ceremony somehow didn't qualify as cheating. The fact that she was aggressively fantasizing about Su Xing Chen while I lay dying in a hospital bed because of her somehow didn't qualify as cheating. The fact that she systematically molded me into a literal walking meat suit substitute for Su Xing Chen didn't count as betrayal either. Yet the moment I hit up a club, after we had already completely severed ties, I was suddenly branded a vile, unforgivable traitor, who deserved absolute condemnation. The sheer hypocrisy was profoundly comical. I had zero desire to waste another breath on Ruyan, turning on my heel to walk away. But she completely abandoned her pride, desperately chasing after me. Susiotin. We both made careless, incredibly foolish mistakes. Why on earth can't we just forgive each other and move forward with our lives? We've known each other for over 2 entire decades, and we've been tightly bound together for 10 whole years. Can you honestly look me in the eye and say you could just delete everything from your memory? She lunged forward, desperately trying to grab hold of my arm, but my 2 personal bodyguards instantly intercepted her, cutting her off completely. I didn't even bother turning my head, responding with absolute, chilling composure. I can delete you from my life with ease. Meeting. What's going on? She desperately tried to rush over and grab my arm, only to be aggressively intercepted by the 2 towering bodyguards, standing right by my side. Without even turning my head, I coldly and calmly stated, being able to entirely purge you from my life is. Su Xingxian was the absolute catalyst. The exact millisecond you chose to unlock your obsession with him, you completely flushed every shred of our shared history directly down the drain. Therefore, I can easily wipe you out of my system as well. Go back to him, or go crawl into the arms of anyone else for all I care. Just stay the hell away from me and permanently halt your pathetic harassment. I am actively moving forward with my life, and my eyes are focused strictly on the bright future ahead of me. Unlike you, who is tragically doomed to spend eternity pathetically lingering over the broken, rotted ruins of the past. Ruyan, however, adamantly refused to simply walk away and accept defeat. She ruthlessly abandoned her domestic business empire, completely ignored the frantic warnings and desperate interventions of absolutely everyone around her, and stubbornly insisted on staying pinned to my side. Susin. Shun was completely driven up the wall by this development, eventually trailing her all the way across the globe. He exploded in a violent, unhinged rage the exact second he cornered me. Susiotin, you really think you're a master tactician, don't you? You seriously calculated this entire wedding day flight just as a desperate, toxic ploy to hijack her absolute attention. If you honestly believe you've won, you're dead wrong. I have a million twisted ways to force her right back into my arms. I stood entirely motionless, calmly observing the pathetic creature that was Su Xing. Shun. This was the exact monster who systematically brainwashed and stole my biological mother away from me, completely sabotaged my shot at a peaceful existence, and aggressively hijacked every single one of my lifelong friends and my romantic partner. It seemed that as long as an item belonged to me, regardless of whether he held a single shred of genuine passion for it or not. His sole directive was to aggressively snatch it away. In the agonizing years prior, my burning hatred for Su Xingqian and that wretched, toxic homewrecker cut straight to my very bones. But staring at his pathetic face right now, I felt nothing but an overwhelming wave of pure pity. Their deeply warped, superficial universe, there is zero room for authentic love. It is nothing but a never-ending cycle of backstabbing, psychological warfare, and ceaseless, exhausting. Power struggles. He pathetically treats every single man on Earth as an imaginary rival, and treats toxic, manipulative women as some grand, glorious conquest. Entirely blind to the reality that the very second you permanently cut yourself loose from those radioactive women, a massive, breathtakingly beautiful sky awaits you. Whatever you say, kid, do us both a massive favor and drag that woman right back to your home country immediately, so I can finally enjoy a few days of absolute peace. Su Xingqian was visibly caught off guard, his smug face freezing for a split second before he violently whipped out a stack of torn paper, the exact missing pages ripped straight from her diary, and shoved them into my face. What the hell are you looking so arrogant for? The one and only person she truly worships is me. He began sadistically detailing, with agonizing precision, every single intimate encounter he and Ruyan had engaged in during the hidden timeline. The profound, desperate devotion I had spent my entire existence begging for was nothing more than a casual, completely mundane Tuesday afternoon routine. For him, the icy, unapproachable Ruyan, who rarely cracked a smile for the rest of the world, transformed into a completely uninhibited, passionately wild beast the absolute second she was behind closed doors with him. I couldn't care less about reading any further. That highly romanticized, white, moonlight cliché of theirs was nothing more than a fleeting, shallow burst of primal lust. The truth is, the only person Ruyan has ever genuinely loved from the very beginning. Until today is her own selfish self. Spinning on my heel to walk away, I suddenly froze as I caught. It seemed utterly pathetic. Within their toxic, twisted world, real love never existed. Only constant bloodshed, ruthless slaughter, and unending feuds. He viewed every single male as a hypothetical archenemy, while treating garbage, low-tier women as trophy prizes, completely failing to realize that once you walk away from those toxic women, a vastly wider, limitless sky awaits outside. As for you, You'd better hurry up and snatch her back to your own territory so I can finally enjoy a few days of absolute peace and quiet. Su Xingqian froze in utter shock for a moment before aggressively thrusting a crumpled, torn page from the diary right at me. What exactly do you have to be so smug about? The one she truly loves is me. He then began bragging in sickening, meticulous detail about every single moment from that specific period, boasting about what he and Ruyan had done together, the deeply yearned for bucket list dreams that I desperately craved my entire wretched life were nothing but mundane, utterly basic daily routines. To him, Ruyan, who rarely ever smiled in front of anyone else, would completely unleash her wildest, most passionate, and uninhibited side whenever she was with him. I couldn't be bothered to look. This so-called white moonlight was nothing more than a fleeting, momentary lust. The only person Ruyan has ever truly loved, from the very beginning, was strictly herself. But the moment I turned around, I suddenly discovered. From the very beginning was strictly herself. But the moment I turned around, I suddenly discovered. Sight of Ruyan standing there. God knows how long. She had been silently lurking behind my back. She looked absolutely emaciated and drained, completely unlike the meticulously polished, elegantly dressed woman she used to be. Her hair was a disheveled mess. Her eyes were violently bloodshot, and she was still draped in the incredibly cheap, ordinary outfit I had bought for her years ago. Suddenly, she lunged right past me, charging directly at Su Xingqian, and aggressively slapped him across the face with explosive fury. Shut your damn mouth. I will never permit you to poison and sabotage my relationship with Xiaolin ever again. I have already dug up absolutely every shred of the truth and uncovered your entire scheme. You never held a single ounce of genuine love for me. You intentionally orchestrated this entire seduction just to ruthlessly shatter Xiaolin's world. That night, back in Qingluo, you weren't pulling double shifts to balance work and studies at all. You had actually eloped with another woman, and the moment you couldn't stomach the harsh reality of poverty, you pathetically abandoned her and fled. From the very beginning until now, you have done nothing but feed me a web of toxic lies. You are the sole reason I lost my Xiaolin. He is undeniably the most magnificent soul, and the only person who ever truly loved me unconditionally in this entire universe. Succhinkin stod frozen in absolute disbelief. Clutching his burning cheek, Ruyan slowly turned her head, shifting her tear-filled eyes directly toward me. Xiaolin, you knew absolutely everything about his vile history, didn't you? You knew the entire truth. So why on earth did you never warn me? Why did you just stand idly by and watch me get ruthlessly manipulated and deceived? I let out a dry, mocking chuckle. If I had spoken up, would you have even listened to a single word? Absolutely not. You would have merely branded me a desperate, jealous loser begging for your affection. Furthermore, we literally grew up side by side since childhood. Are you honestly trying to tell me you were completely blind to the exact kind of vile parasite Su Xingqian actually was? You simply craved his physical body while simultaneously dodging any form of real responsibility. Ruyan, you are nothing but a hypocritical, narcissistic monster wrapped in a human shell, and you utterly disgust me. Perhaps my brutal words cut a little too deep, because from that exact moment forward, Ruyan completely vanished into absolute silence for a very long time. Su Xingqian also lost every shred of his unhinged audacity, no longer daring to bark or throw a single tantrum in front of me. I stepped into a vital role at my father's corporate enterprise, gradually mastering every intricate detail of our global business operations. After clocking out, I would frequently grab drinks and hang out with my new colleagues, exchanging laughs and enjoying a beautifully serene, comfortingly warm daily routine. But just as I finally felt confident that my existence had normalized and stabilized on a spectacular trajectory, a terrifying nightmare struck without warning. On my usual route back from a late night overtime shift, I suddenly realized someone was covertly stalking me. That particular stretch of the road was completely deserted, with the overhead streetlights flickering ominously, terrified that calling the emergency lines would instantly spook the shadow behind me. I desperately forced myself to maintain an aura of absolute composure. Yet, the exact second I brushed past a dense, overgrown thicket, the route was desolate, with barely any foot traffic passing through, and the overhead streetlights flickered radically, fearing that a hasty, frantic call to the police might utterly spook the stalker. I carefully maintained absolute composure. As I paced past a thick, overgrown cluster of bushes, a shadowy figure abruptly lunged outward, aggressively locking me in a suffocating chokehold from behind. I was instantly scared absolutely out of my mind, my entire body violently trembling with raw terror. Please don't hurt me. I'll willingly hand over every single cent of cash on my person to you. The predator didn't utter a single word, instead ruthlessly tightening their grip around my chest, as if completely terrified that I might somehow break free and escape. At that exact microsecond, the overhead streetlight flared violently. Capitalizing on that brief, unstable flash of illumination, I caught sight of a distinct star tattoo engraved right above the person's breast. Stunned in absolute, mind-boggling disbelief, my jaw dropped as I gasped out, "Ruyan." In an instant, her entire posture went completely rigid. I summoned every ounce of my remaining strength to violently shove her away, and the moment I verified her pathetic face, I channeled all the force left in my body to deliver a vicious slap across her cheek. Ruyan, what on earth are you trying to pull here? You are nothing but a psychotic, subhuman beast." Her cheek immediately swelled into a bright crimson hue. Yet she didn't project a single shred of rage. Instead, she frantically and with utmost delicacy cradled my shaking hand, gently blowing on it while whispering "Xiaolin, I swear I would never dream of hurting you. I could never bear to inflict even a scratch upon your skin. I only orchestrated this because I desperately want to take you back home." I recoiled in absolute disgust, aggressively dodging Ruyan's toxic touch. Throughout our many years together, I was well aware of her terrifyingly stubborn nature. She was the type who refused to change course until she crashed directly into a brick wall. But never in my wildest nightmares did I expect her twisted obsession to warp to this extreme, losing her absolute sanity to this extent. My legs went completely weak, forcing me to slump against the cold concrete wall as my frame vibrated uncontrollably from the sheer adrenaline and panic. Ruyan aggressively closed the distance between us once more, murmuring, "Xiaolin, look at how terrifying and incredibly dangerous the outside world truly is. Just come right back to my embrace, okay? Men deserve to be fiercely guarded and protected too, and I will shield you from everything. I will permanently sever every single tie with Su Xingchen." In reality, I never held an ounce of true love for him. I was merely suffocated by corporate stress for far too long, causing me to momentarily lose my mind to a fleeting infatuation. Whether she genuinely loved him or not, I couldn't care less. The only objective truth I knew was that Ruyan was utterly addicted to playing the role of a tragic, deeply devoted martyr. What she proudly branded as passionate infatuation was nothing but a toxic delusion that completely ignored the fundamental boundaries and sanity of her victim. I tightly clutched my chest, trying to calm my wildly thumping heart, and hissed out, "Ruyan permanently vanished from my sight, and never dare to crawl back into my life ever again. If you pull a psychotic stunt like this one more time, I will instantly have the authorities arrest you." The second I managed to stabilize my fractured breathing, I fired off a quick text message to my dad, briefly summarizing the horrific ambush and demanding that he immediately drive over to pick me up. Even now, my knees felt like pure jelly, leaving me completely paralyzed and unable to take a single step forward. Ruyan stood frozen like a pathetic, misbehaving child who had just been caught red-handed, staring helplessly at me as a barrage of words died in her throat. After what felt like an absolute eternity, my father arrived on the scene, backed by a formidable squad of law enforcement officers. Ruyan was immediately detained. She didn't offer a single shred of resistance, merely fixing her hollow gaze on me. Within, her eyes swam an overwhelming, agonizing sea of profound reluctance and regret. My dad was completely hell-bent on throwing Ruyan behind bars. Eventually, my biological mother and the entire prominent Liu family flocked to the station to aggressively negotiate. They initially attempted to grovel and beg for mercy, but quickly shifted to a barrage of vile insults, branding me a shameless, ungrateful coward who had sabotaged his own wedding. They cursed me as a cold-blooded, ruthless monster for trying to lock up my former fiancé. Yet, in that chaotic explosion of hostility, it was Ruyan, who had been entirely silent until now, who fiercely roared back to shut them down. Every single ounce of blame lies entirely on me. This has completely nothing to do with Xiaolin. I am merely reaping the horrific consequences of my own actions. My insatiable greed and absolute arrogance blinded me, causing me to treat his devotion like pure garbage. I am utterly crushed by regret. I'm so incredibly, desperately sorry. Xiaolin, I no longer possess the absolute audacity to beg for your forgiveness. The only thing I desperately plead for is that you don't erase me from your memory entirely. My mother also attempted to step forward to plead her case, but the moment she collided with my father's chilling, razor-sharp glare, she awkwardly bowed, her head in absolute shame. Throughout the entire ordeal, her eyes kept darting nervously, desperately trying to gauge my father's reaction. I could instantly tell that she, too, was drowning in profound regret. It seems some people are tragically doomed to require total, absolute ruin, just to finally comprehend the true, priceless worth of what they held. For toxic individuals like them, the things they can never possess, and the things they have permanently destroyed are the only treasures they will ever truly value. Ultimately, after immense legal pressure and frantic interventions from multiple powerful factions, Ruyan was forced to pay a massive financial settlement and was officially slapped with a deportation order to be sent back to her home country. Right before she was escorted away, she looked at me with broken eyes and whispered, "Will we ever cross paths again?" "Never in this eternity." Hearing my definitive answer, she completely broke down, weeping hysterically and wailing in front of the entire crowd, her body trembling uncontrollably. How on earth did our story end up in this absolute ruin, Xiaolin? You were anchored by my side for so long, so incredibly long that I foolishly convinced myself you would never have the strength to walk away. I was so comfortable that I thought no matter how horribly I humiliated you, you would always unconditionally forgive me. I never, in my wildest nightmares, anticipated that a day would arrive where you would silently slip away from my life forever, let alone that I would permanently lose you the exact second you vanished. I realized my entire world had transformed into a completely hollow, unrecognizable wasteland. I swear I never actively desired to break your heart, Xiaolin. I was simply too weak to resist the intoxicating thrill of forbidden fruit. The moment my sanity returned, I knew with absolute certainty that I would never actually build a future with Su Xing. Chun. Yet, I was simply too selfish to sacrifice the wild, uninhibited passion that Su Xing. I fully recognized that I would never ultimately choose Su Xing. Chun, yet I simply couldn't bear to let go of the thrilling, uninhibited freedom that Su Xing. Chun showered upon me, and so, I selfishly tried to force you into his mold, molding your entire image to mirror his. I genuinely convinced myself that by doing so, I could toxically possess both of you simultaneously. But I completely overlooked the absolute truth. I utterly forgot that there's only one Su Xiaolin in this entire universe. Whether flawless or flawed, you are a completely irreplaceable, one-of-a-kind existence. Your proud, uncompromising gaze could never tolerate a single speck of betrayal, and you would absolutely never lower yourself to serve as a pathetic substitute. As My father, and I turned to head home. Ruyan's trembling voice continued to echo from behind us, desperately weeping over her regrets. The bucket list. You meticulously wrote down on the calendar. I saw every single line of it. Why on earth did we spend such an immense lifetime together, yet never managed to fulfill even the simplest, most mundane activities? Aside from that one blurry, low-quality photo, I can't even unearth a single decent couple's photograph of us. We never once shared a carefree day together at an amusement park, nor did we ever sit down to enjoy a prupe pas a fulmeal. 2 decades of knowing each other, and 10 long years of being bound in romance. And now, looking back at every single memory, it is completely choked with nothing but agonizing regret. I was so incredibly blind. I should have woken up to reality a long, long time ago. I allowed my own toxic lust to completely rot my mind. When I crossed the ocean to find you, I naively thought that even if I couldn't drag you back, at least I could patch up some of these shattered ruins. I never, ever expected it to explode into such a chaotic, disgraceful disaster. Xiaolin, is there truly no way you could ever forgive me? Ruyan's voice sounded as though her very soul was being violently torn apart by agony, yet I steadfastly refused to turn my head back, even a single fraction of an inch. My father smoothly tossed the car keys directly into my palm. You have genuinely evolved into a remarkable man, son. Starting at dawn tomorrow, you are officially taking the reins of the entire corporate empire. Your old man can finally, peacefully step down and enjoy a long overdue retirement. I cracked a genuine smile. I swear I won't let you down, Dad. Our vehicle smoothly glided off the airport expressway. The unfamiliar, foreign landscape outside the window began to blur and recede rapidly into the background. A brilliant, comfortingly warm golden sunlight cascaded down, bathing the back of my slightly trembling hand. My father silently handed me a bottle of warm water, his voice dropping to a gentle murmur. The past is officially dead and buried. Cracking open and shedding a few tears is perfectly fine, but never allow that ghost to shackle and paralyze your forward momentum. I have absolute faith that you will dominate your new responsibilities and build a spectacular, magnificent new chapter for your warm, gentle voice, whispering what's done is done. Have a good cry, it's totally okay, but absolutely never let it anchor and drag down your future. Don't let it bind your footsteps, my son. Dad completely believes you can handle your own life flawlessly and that you will live an exceptionally grand, vibrant existence on your own terms of mine, while simultaneously carving out an exceptionally brilliant, successful life. I quietly took the warm cup from his hands, and the suffocating, long-suppressed emotions within me finally erupted. Silent tears streamed down my face, splashing against the rim of the cup and leaving a clear, only the sheer burden. I was finally completely free from playing the pathetic substitute for someone else, and I could finally live entirely for myself. Taking the reins of my father's corporate empire proved infinitely more brutal than I had ever anticipated. I possessed zero experience navigating the cutthroat landscape of international commerce. During that grueling first month, I was practically forced to clock intense overtime hours until the dead of night. The massive spreadsheets, the dense, unfamiliar corporate jargon, and the exhausting barriers of multicultural communication piled a mountain of stress onto my shoulders. On a few weak occasions, my muscle memory kicked in, and I instinctively tempted to shoot a distress text to Ruyan. After all, she was once the brilliant, formidable businesswoman I thought I could safely lean on for the rest of my days. Above the screen, reality slammed back into me. I aggressively wiped the text draft and dove straight back into the documents. I knew that from this precise moment forward, I had to master the art of standing firmly on my own 2 feet without ever relying on a single soul. Ever again. My father never choked me with unrealistic demands. Instead, he would regularly pull all-nighters right beside me, sharing late-night comfort food, listening patiently to my corporate frustrations, and with absolute patience, anchoring me through the intricate blueprints of corporate governance, profit optimization, and organizational psychology. Navigating the business world is no different from navigating life, son. approaching others with absolute transparency while guarding your core. Integrity with unyielding conviction is infinitely more valuable than any shortcut. His profound wisdom acted as a brilliant, guiding beacon that completely illuminated my path forward. Slowly but surely, I cast away my paralyzing self-doubt and imposter syndrome, evolving into a much more grounded, decisive leader who confronted administrative crises head-on. Even when dealing with incredibly hostile, toxic clients, I could effortlessly command a boardroom and negotiate with absolute composure. As I mastered our global operations, I gradually earned the genuine loyalty and respect of our entire workforce. During our precious downtime, my father and I would take peaceful strolls through local parks, head down to the pristine coastline to watch the breathtaking sunsets, and immerse ourselves in the vibrant local culture. I permanently stopped, maintaining that sloppy, unkempt hairstyle that mirrored Su Xing Chun, and I completely threw out those oversized gray hoodies. In their place, I donned immaculately tailored, sharp suits, and rocked a clean. I even hit the gym consistently, reignited my passion for reading, and began playing the piano again. To rock a messy short haircut mimicking Su Xing Chun anymore, I ditched the oversized gray hoodie, replacing it with a meticulously tailored, perfectly fitting suit and a crisp, sharp hairstyle. My entire presence radiated a vastly superior, vibrant energy. I even hit the gym to resume my intense workout routine, while diving back into reading books and mastering new skills. Expanding trail. This time, there was no bitter resentment, nor any lingering sorrow, which I had completely sacrificed and cast aside for the sake of Ruyan. Now they served as the ultimate nourishment, fueling my personal evolution. I completely conquered my late-night insomnia, and I no longer panicked whenever I caught a voice mirroring Ruyan's tone. In the grand tapestry of my existence, she had finally faded into a completely irrelevant, distant passerby, a harsh, permanent reminder that I must fiercely protect my own self-worth. Half a year later, a few updates regarding Ruyan drifted my way through an old classmate. Following her highly publicized deportation back home, she had completely spiraled out of control. She aggressively liquidated her corporate firm and sold off our intended matrimonial estate, throwing all her energy into tracking down Su Xingchen. However, Su Xingchen had completely vanished from the grid the exact second she slapped him across the face. Some rumors claimed he had crept back into the country and immediately hooked up with a new target, while others insisted he was drowning in massive debt and had gone into hiding to evade his creditors. Meanwhile, Ruyan had transformed into a completely hollow, mindless ghost, spending her days and nights haunting the entrance of the sketchy love hotel where she had once met Su Xing Chun. She frequently refused to eat or drink, causing her physique to grow increasingly gaunt and decrepit. The brilliant, untouchable corporate titan of yesteryear was now reduced to a tragic figure, draped in tattered, unwashed clothes with a completely vacant, lifeless stare, losing every single shred of her former glory. Hearing those horrific updates, my heart didn't experience even a microscopic ripple of emotion. I felt zero pity for her, nor did I experience a single drop of malicious satisfaction. My mind simply drifted back to the humiliating era when I would pathetically grovel just to secure a smile from Ruyan. My bare feet literally rubbed raw and bleeding. For her sake, I recalled the agonizing, soul-crushing words permanently engraved in her diary. Those deeply carved wounds had long since closed, leaving behind faint scars that served as a permanent warning to never, under any circumstances, repeat those fatal mistakes. The absolute tragedy of Ruyan's downfall was entirely self-inflicted. Orchestrated by her own hands. Her insatiable, toxic greed drove her to crave the reckless, forbidden thrills, doted upon her by Su Xingchen, while simultaneously demanding the absolute safety and warmth of my undying devotion, weaponizing my love for her. Without a single shred of fear or respect, she ultimately lit the match that incinerated her own paradise, permanently banishing the one soul who had treasured her above all else in this universe. As another peaceful block of time flowed by, my father proudly escorted me to a prestigious summit celebrating elite overseas Chinese entrepreneurs. It was within those distinguished halls that I crossed paths with Lin Xian. She was the brilliant founder of a highly successful design firm, radiating an aura of absolute grace, kindness, fierce independence, and laser-focused maturity. We effortlessly connected on every single level. She possessed a profound empathy for the intense trauma and grief I had survived while holding an immense admiration for the unyielding resilience and personal evolution I had achieved. She was a woman who would absolutely never, at a design firm, exceptionally gentle, genuinely kind-hearted, fiercely independent, and profoundly sharp. Our conversations flowed with flawless compatibility. She truly understood my deepest regrets and hidden scars, while simultaneously showing immense appreciation for my unyielding resilience and emotional growth. She was someone who would absolutely never, ever take my absolute devotion, care, and sacrifices for granted, nor would she ever audaciously demand that I morph into somebody else. The version of me she completely adored was simply my absolute, raw, authentic self, a Su Xiaolin, who had survived a horrific betrayal, yet relentlessly fought to reclaim his life. Lin Xian would frequently bring piping, hot gourmet dinners to the office whenever I pulled late-night shifts, patiently anchoring me through every corporate crisis while offering brilliant, strategic counsel. On weekends, she was right beside me at the gym, sharing books and unwinding by the serene ocean. The beautiful era spent with her was anchored in absolute peace and profound security, completely devoid of toxic shouting matches, manipulative games, or pathetic, low-value groveling. There was only mutual respect, raw equality, and a shared, powerful drive toward a magnificent future. Slowly but surely, I unlocked the heavy gates of my heart, learning to embrace love all over again, rebuilding my trust in humanity. I finally realized that a real man's universe doesn't purely revolve around romance or validation from a toxic partner. It is built on an ambitious career, unyielding legacy, and ultimate self-worth. Authentic, high-value love is defined by two powerful individuals building empires together, elevating one another to maximize their full potential. One afternoon, while decluttering the old storage room, my eyes suddenly landed on the exact pair of premium leather shoes Ruyan had gifted me. The fit was suffocatingly tiny, and the inner lining still bore the faint, faded crimson bloodstains of my past misery. With absolute composure, I casually tossed them into a cardboard box destined for a local charity donation center. Those shoes were the ultimate symbol of my decade-long toxic fixation and low-value submission. But right now, I no longer required them. I had zero need to cram my feet into a suffocatingly ill-fitting shoe just to validate my existence, nor did I need to beg a toxic, unworthy person to grant me a false sense of belonging. At that exact moment, my father walked in, quietly handing me a smartphone. Ruyan is calling. Apparently, she had tracked down my dad's line, weeping about her miserable existence and begging for just one final meeting with me, even if it meant merely catching a distant glimpse of my shadow. The screen displayed an unlisted number, proving she had completely changed her contacts. I stared at it in profound silence for a brief second, before firmly hitting the decline button and sliding the device back to my father. There's no point. We permanently severed those ties an eternity ago. Facing her, again yields absolutely zero purpose. My father nodded, approvingly, giving my shoulder a supportive, proud squeeze. He knew this wasn't an act of malicious cruelty, but a definitive sign that I had completely evolved beyond the ghost of her memory. That very evening, Lin Xian and I walked hand in hand down to the pristine coastline to witness the sunset. The brilliant crimson Tajum painted a breathtaking golden highway across the vast ocean waves, making the water sparkle like a sea of diamonds. Gently interlocking her arm with mine, she murmured softly, "The dark chapters of the past are officially over. From this moment forward, let's chase after infinite, beautiful horizons together." She gently wrapped her arm around mine, softly whispering, "The painful past is finally behind us. From this moment on, let's build our future together and discover more beautiful sunsets across the globe, and cross off every unfulfilled bucket list item." I turned my head to meet her gentle, comforting gaze, a serene, truly liberated smile gracing my lips. My mind drifted back to those meticulously listed dreams on my old calendar. The tragic regrets that I could never materialize. With Ruyan would, from this moment on, be fulfilled. With Lin Xian right by my side, we would explore breathtaking amusement parks together, ride the towering Ferris wheel, watch the glorious sunrises and sunsets, share warm family dinners, and celebrate a beautifully intimate wedding. The dynamic voids of the past were finally being flooded and healed by a radiant new happiness. The absolute trauma of yesteryear had ultimately transformed into a proud badge of honor documenting my growth. As darkness gradually blanketed the horizon and a cool ocean breeze swept by, I locked my fingers tightly with Lin Xian's, staring at the twinkling city lights in the far distance, my soul completely overflowing with hope. The past was officially history, and the future was boundless. With infinite potential, I would never lower myself or grovel for anyone ever again, nor would I ever play a pathetic substitute for a single soul. I will guard my integrity with absolute conviction, dominate my career, and deeply treasure the genuine partner standing right before me. The catastrophic downfall of Ruyan was strictly the consequence of her own toxic choices, having absolutely nothing to do with my life anymore. As for me, I will proudly carry forward my father's legacy and build a future alongside Lin Xian, staying anchored to my true self while boldly charging ahead. I'm stepping out into the vast, majestic world that truly belongs to me, to wholeheartedly embrace this brilliant new chapter. For the rest of my days, I will harbor no love and no hate for the past, moving strictly toward the blinding light. This is undeniably the ultimate life I have always deserved.